BiostatDoc here with a quick video on introducing R Markdown. We're going to use the example document that comes with the system, and we'll show you how it can be used to learn all of the ins and outs, at least of the basics of R Markdown. Join me. As you can see, I've got RStudio up and running. I've got my script window in the upper left. I've got the console in my lower left. I've got the viewer in my lower right and my environment in my upper right. This is the usual layout. Yours might differ just a little bit, but let's go over to File, New File, pull it down and choose an R Markdown. We're going to make our very first R Markdown file. Let's give it a title, a first document. It's already filled in the author, it's filled in the date, it's chosen as the default output format HTML, but we could have chosen PDF and Word. Maybe we'll do that a little bit later. Notice that we could do a document, a presentation, or some other things, but let's just choose OK and get the default results. And notice, quite unusually, we don't get a blank document. We actually get a document with some example information in it that's meant to help us understand and learn how to use R Markdown to describe the document that we want when it's ultimately rendered. So always think about your R Markdown as the source for describing this. At the very top are the major elements to the document. Following that is some options for how to handle R code that will be used to produce other output that we want to include in our document. Now we can do paragraphs, we can do links. We've got some kind of notation here around the word knit with 2 asterisks on each side. Following that, we've got an actual R code chunk. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen with that code. Will we be able to see the code and its output in our document? In the including plots, it says that we can also include plots. And there's some code to do so. And it also tells us that because it has included this echo equals false, that we're only going to get the plot, we won't get the code as well. That's really interesting. How are we going to go from the description of this document into a final product? Well, we're going to use knit. We're going to knit to a final document format. We could choose HTML, PDF, or Word. Let's choose HTML since that's the way we started in the dialog box. Now it's going to ask me to save my R Markdown document, and so I do so, and then it creates the HTML version, and it lets me view that HTML document in the viewer window in the lower right. Now yours might pop up on a separate window. That's perfectly fine. It's just a view of the final document, and so we can compare the source, that is our description of the document, and the rendering of that document in HTML formats. You can see how our section headings were done, how our title was done, and the date. We can see that those double asterisks cause a format change. It caused all of the text in between those double asterisks to be in strong font. We go down and we can see that our code did indeed get included, as well as the outcome of running that code. In the next section, we see that our plot got included, but not the code, which is actually what we wanted and what is highlighted in the text surrounding that. This is like a how-to document for R Markdown, at least for the basics. And we get so many pieces that are so important and so common. So it's great to go back and try these yourselves. Before we leave though, let's try to knit to another format. Let's try to knit a Word document. And when we do, we'll see something very similar, but not exactly like we saw when we knitted our document to HTML. We can see that the title and author got centered at the beginning. There was some color changes in some fonts because that's the default for those elements of the document, right? So for the title and for the section headings, they have specific kinds of stylistic concerns in Word. I also want you to see that if you go and look in your Explorer, that the R Markdown, the docx, and the HTML files are all there in the same place. So the transition from the description of the document into the final format was done and saved for us. Try these things yourself. I think you'll find that most of these first pieces are easy, but we're going to go over them and show how they're very similar to things you've already learned in subsequent parts to this video series. I'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us. And look again, we've got other videos helping to explain all of the components of R Markdown and illustrating their use.